Hello, it's Warren Huart. Hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm sitting here in NRG Studio A in front of this lovely Neve console. I got started because I wanted to be a guitar player. I wanted to be Brian May in Queen. And the thing about Queen is that massive complexity of layered harmonies, both in vocals and in guitars. So falling in love with that at the age of 9 just made me love production music without realizing it. In retrospect, you know, it's that turned me into a producer. Well, when I was still in the UK, I was a studio owner, so doing a lot of demos, and especially demos for bands I was in, that got my band signed. I came over here as a musician, but I'd got my band signed by producing and writing the songs with the band. In fact, the first single that we had that charted top 40, I produced. And when I moved here, I carried on being in a band, but all the time I had a studio. I had a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in Silver Lake, and I'd record bands all over my apartment. So I had a stand-up bass player in my bathroom. I had the drums in the living room. I had the vocals in another bedroom, amps in the kitchen. And I produced a lot of bands, and quite a few of them got record deals. I've always had a studio at home, whether it be 2 cassette players, a 4-track cassette, some ADATs, primitive DAWs, whatever it is, I've always had some kind of studio. And I got to that point where, you know, I was making records both as a musician and then eventually, you know, as a producer and engineer in my own right. And I was coming into like NRG kind of level studios, and you'd go in and you'd track drums, but then you have to do overdubs, and doing a vocal for a lot of people, you know, at sort of $1,200 to $1,500 a day gets expensive. So you get a studio out of necessity. And you know, necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. Having a tech is the biggest thing a studio can have, especially when you've got a vintage console. That is a differentiator between a lot of professional studios and a lot of guys or girls that have studios in their house. Yeah, that is a differentiator between, for me, a professional studio and a home environment is keeping the gear running at all times. Because people come to a room like this because they want the sound of that room through this console. So it's very important that a professional studio have a tech staff, or at least somebody on speed dial that's going to be there in 20 minutes. I've done many TV things and film stuff, and it's all different levels. Some of it is custom made, like Inglourious Basterds, it was the trailer. I wrote the music for the trailer, so when you went to go and see the trailer playing in the movie was that, and I wrote that and recorded it without sounding pompous in about 20 minutes. And then I've written other trailer pieces where it's taken me 3 days and they've rejected it. So I don't know what the lesson is there. And then I've got, you know, music that I wrote for film and TV, and then I've got stuff that I've produced that other bands have had placed. The Fray obviously were a huge one. I mean, songs I worked on with the Fray are some of the most licensed songs of all time. Anybody watching this will probably know How to Save a Life. Even if they didn't hear it on the radio, they'll know it because it was in Scrubs about 4,000 times. It became a standing joke. It got played so often. My all-time favourite record to listen to, Queen and Night of the Opera. First rock and roll album I ever heard. I actually like all the changes in the music industry. I like the way things are going. That's really contentious, and other people in my position would scream and shout at me. But I like Spotify. People hate it, but I like it. I like Spotify because it is a reality, and we have to stop pretending and screaming and shouting about something that is here to stay. Whether Spotify becomes the only and the most dominant streaming service for the next whatever 50 years or not is up for discussion, but it's not going to go back to kids buying music in CD form. It's just not. And we're all kicking and screaming about this platform because it suited an antiquated business model. And the antiquated business model was, wait for the phone to ring, go in and work for 6 weeks, get paid a huge amount of money, and then wait for the phone to ring. Now it's like hustle, create it, get involved in your artist's future, start caring a little bit more. Every time you open up Facebook and you hear somebody complaining about who was that girl that was signed the other day, and it just was like, only thing on Facebook was Atlantic had signed this artist and everybody was like trashing it. It's like, sure, go and cultivate a young artist and do something that's better. And I like the Spotify platform because I have independent artists that they own their music 100%. So what it means is they wrote the song and they own the master. So one of my artists makes anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 a month off Spotify plays, but there's nobody out there who knows who he is. You can be a middle-class artist, but it takes work. So it's up to the artists and the producers and the songwriters and everybody to get in there and really help each other. So I actually like where we're at. It's still the wild, wild west. There's still very cynical people cashing in on artists. But in general, if your motives are pure and you really are looking to build something and make something great, I think it's a great time to be doing music. It's interesting, with the YouTube channel, I'm sort of moving between things that I know will do really, really well and things that I want to help educate people on. I see some of the guys that are super successful, like massive numbers, and then I see people that are less successful, but I like their content. So I try to sit in the middle because I think if I did more shock value, big statements like, why you suck as a producer, we'll probably get 250,000 views if I did a video called that. But A, it's clickbait, and it's just not how I want to present myself. So I'd rather have quality over quantity. I'd rather educate people, show them the realities of what the music industry is. Well, the Produce Like a Pro Academy is kind of an extension of everything we talked about. Most of the stuff that we see that does these kind of things makes it very competitive. Forums tend to be places where people trash each other, as we know, and tell everybody they're wrong, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't care for that at all. I care for support. It's a very, very tough business. So instead of when you've had a bad day, instead of taking it out on somebody in a forum, go in there and try and find some resolution. And the more I help people, the easier my life is. And, so community is huge for me. And that's what the Produce Like a Pro Academy is. It's all about community. I mean, the number one piece of advice I would say is just do it. Don't speculate about the industry and where it's at, because it's very easy for us to be like, oh, why should I bother? Because this, and this. One of the biggest things for me is I identify with people because I've had all those feelings. I didn't produce my own music for the longest time because I was like, oh, nobody's going to want to hear me. And then the more artists I work with, I was like, oh, wait there, I can do this, I can do that. So it made it easier for me to do things for myself. And as I learned different techniques for recording myself, I was able to apply those to other people. So it really is a very important thing to just go out and do it. It's very easy to be paralyzed and to sit there. But yes, you have to work hard. But if you love music, it's really not that big of a deal.